Hello, a very good afternoon. I hope you're all doing great today. This is Sharda from the marketing team of Manage Engine 80 Solutions, and I will be your presenter for today. And we are going to be talking about enterprise single sign on for cloud applications and how to achieve single sign on, SAML based single sign on using AD Self Service Plus. I hope my voice is audible and the display is well and clear. If not, please drop in a message in the chat box or the question tab. Please drop in an OK message in the questions tab or the chat box so I can get ahead with today's session. Thank you so much. So yes, welcome to the AD Self Service Plus webinar on Enterprise Single Sign-On Solution for your cloud applications. This is going to be a 45-minute presentation, and I will try to make use of the first 35 minutes to talk about how to get working with AD Self Service Plus and how to achieve single sign-on for more than 100 cloud applications. And we could reserve the last 10 minutes for a question answer session, for a dedicated question answer session. But you can always keep your questions coming during the session so I can have a quick read and try to answer them in the session itself. And I hope that worked for all of you. So yes, why do we need a single sign-on solution, or what are the advantages of a single sign-on solution? The first and primary advantage is to achieve a quick fuss-free integration between your Active Directory and cloud applications. So the recent survey that we conducted in my organization gave us a result that organizations, irrespective of the size, make use of at least 3 to 5 applications on an everyday basis. So imagine the time consumed when users have to access the login URLs, remember their user credentials, log in, and have uninterrupted access to all these applications. And we are talking about on an everyday basis. So what if the Active Directory plays a major advantage in helping users gain access to all these cloud applications? And here I'm talking about more than 100 applications. So that is one major advantage of a single sign-on solution. Secondly, talking about the security. Yes, we are in an era where security, though has been traveling with us for a very long time, the importance in achieving security is much more. And yes, with GDPR coming along and more focus on the compliance and security and the compliance that organizations have to meet, it is very important to secure your organizational network. So what I'm trying to imply here is that when users try to access these applications, that is, make use of one set of credentials to access more than 100 applications, the obvious question that pops up into most of our heads is that aren't we compromising on security? Or not at all, not with a solution like AD Self Service Plus. I'm going to tell you why. Because we are talking about improved security with two-factor authentication. So not only does the Active Directory credentials of the users act as an authentication source to log in and access these applications, you can add an additional layer of security here. And that could be your RSA secure ID, your verification code via email or SMS. It could be your Duo security and a few other options that AD Self Service Plus supports. So yes, not anybody can break into your network, or not anybody can get access to all these applications. And the major concern about single sign-on being a compromise on security is well balanced here with our Manage Engine AD Self Service Plus, our password management and single sign-on solution. Also, we're talking about major applications like Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Dropbox, Zendesk, and many, many more applications that have gained a lot of importance over the years in applications which are being widely used across multiple organizations, multiple work environments. So we are talking about users gaining a one-click access to all these applications. Once again, another advantage is policy-based access control. So these advantages that you see on your screen is very specific to AD Self-Service Plus. So what do I mean by policy-based access control? So when I am talking about giving a one-click seamless access to 100 plus applications, 100 plus cloud applications, do I mean that every user in my organization, irrespective of the organization size, say 300 users, say 500 users, say 5,000 users, gaining access to all the 100 applications? Absolutely not. You can customize the access to applications based on user roles, based on organizational units, based on self-service policies that you create, based on groups present in your Active Directory. And this can be simply achieved with the help of AD Self-Service Plus. So I'm here to help you understand the advantages of single sign-on, enterprise single sign-on using our solution AD Self-Service Plus. And like I said, any questions that you have regarding the session, because I'm going to show you a live demonstration of how the configuration works, how simple it is to set up single sign-on using AD Self-Service Plus, and how easy it is for users to gain access to multiple cloud applications. So we're going to see a live demonstration, and if you have any trouble following up during the session, please drop in a message in the questions tab or the chat box that is allocated to you, and I'll ensure I quickly go through so you have a better understanding. Also, the video of this session will be available online in a couple of days. So all you have to do is drop in your mail ID in the questions tab or chat box, and I will ensure that this entire webinar resource kit reaches you in that respective mail ID, which will be of major benefit to you in case you're running short of time or if you'd like to catch up later. All right, so yes, with that said, talking about the advantages, let us see the real-time working of our single sign-on solution. So what I'm going to do now is quickly jump to the AD Self-Service Plus portal before I talk any further about the advantages and show you how this works so you get an idea of how single sign-on works from the end user's perspective. And then we can focus on the administrator's perspective about the configuration and how to get started setting up single sign-on for all the cloud applications. So yes, what I'm going to do now is try and pretend like a domain user, and I'm going to be myself. I'm going to play my role. What I'm going to do is try to log in as the user Sharda into the domain user login. So what you see on your screens is the AD Self-Service Plus password self-service management portal. So yes, I'm going to log in as Sharda, keying in my Windows Active Directory username and credential. So yes, I'm logged in successfully. I've already enrolled with AD Self-Service Plus. So what I'm going to do now is quickly jump to the Applications tab. And you can see that the single sign-on application for Office 365 is already listed on my screen. Yes, I have completed the Office 365 configuration. What I'm going to do is see if the one-click seamless access works for Office 365. You can see that I'm redirected to the AD Self-Service Plus page once again. Now what I'm going to do is click on Domain User Login and enter my Windows logo name and password. And don't be surprised to see that I just made use of my Windows login credentials to access my Office 365 account under the domain thinktodaytechnologies.com. Yes, I was able to access my Office 365 account using my Active Directory domain password, and that is the major advantage of single sign-on. I am talking about a one-click seamless access to multiple applications. So I'm sure this is not surprising because I had pre-configured the single sign-on setup before starting the webinar, and I'm pretty sure I checked how this works. So yes, it's not surprising that we had any trouble logging into our Office 365 account. But what I'm going to do now is try and access my Office 365 account right from the Microsoft login. So yes, the account that I'm working with is thinktodaytechnologies.com. And once again, I'm talking about one-click seamless access to multiple applications. So I am entering my Active Directory credentials, and I was not only able to access my Office 365 account from the AD Self-Service Plus applications tab of the user, but when I made an attempt to access Office 365 directly from the URL, from the respective application URL, I was still redirected to the AD Self-Service Plus page, and with the help of my domain credentials, I was successfully able to log in and access my Office 365 account. So yes, now I'm sure you all believe that single sign-on does have a major advantage when we are working with multiple applications. So why don't you quickly answer a question for me? In the questions tab, drop in the number of applications that users are expected to use in your organization so I get an idea of how it works in your organization. So yes, you can quickly drop in a chat or a question answer to how many applications do users use in your organization, and yes, I'm talking about on a daily basis. So yes, you can drop in your answers. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do is jump back to the AD Self-Service Plus single sign-on presentation and talk a little more about security. So when I'm talking about securing cloud apps with two-factor authentications, what you just saw was making use of the first factor of authentication, which is the Windows login credentials. So yes, when users try to access any of the configured cloud applications, be it G Suite, Salesforce, Zendesk, Zoho, ServiceNow, Office 365, any of the configured single sign-on applications, you can ensure that they go through a secondary factor of authentication. And why is it important? Simply because single sign-on is, one of the major disadvantage of single sign-on, or one of the major disadvantage that experts consider single sign-on solution to be, is that it gives users access to multiple applications. So basically a one-click access to multiple applications. So what we're talking about here is break into one set of credentials and the user has access to multiple applications. We're talking about applications that the user uses on an everyday basis, and that possesses a high compromise on security and a lot of sensitive information. So with the help of the secondary factor of authentication, like the Duo Security, your Google Authenticator, RSA Secure ID, Radius Authentication, or a simple verification code sent to the user's email address or sent via SMS, can ensure or can secure access to these cloud applications. And this is for both the service provider as well as identity providers supported logins. So when I'm talking about service provider and identity provider supported logins, what we saw now for Office 365 was both. Office 365 supports both service provider and identity provider logins, whereas when we're talking about certain other applications, I mean, obviously, not all applications have to support both the methods of single sign-on. So yes, you need to ensure which method is which method works for which application. And yes, most of the applications that we use on an everyday basis do support both the service provider and identity provider single sign-on logins. So with that said, what I'm going to do now is log in as an administrator and show you how this worked. So not only can I explain how single sign-on works using AD Self-Service Plus for Office 365, I also owe you an explanation of how the configuration works from the administrator's end. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. I've logged into AD Self-Service Plus. The dashboard view is the first page that you can see. We have the enrollment reports, the user reports, and the audit reports, giving us a count of how the environment works. The first step that you'd be required to do is configure your domain, and you can see I've already done that. And jumping to the configuration tab, I've also created policies, self-service policies in AD Self-Service Plus based on OUs and groups present in the Active Directory. All right, so what I'm going to do now is jump to password sync or single sign-on under self-service, and this is where the magic works. This is where single sign-on configuration works for more than 100 applications. So I'm quickly scrolling through to give you an idea of all the applications that we support single sign-on for. Bamboo, Big Panda, ServiceNow, Fresh Service, Cherito, Robin. So yes, quite a lot of applications. Workplace, Dropbox, Office 365, G Suite. All right. So I am going to click on Office 365 and show you how the configuration works from the AD Self-Service Plus perspective. So you can see that Think Today Technologies is configured right here. I'm going to hit the edit button, and the note reads configure SSO and guides you to a detailed help document. So this help document is available for each and every application. There is a help document, a stepwise help guide to guide you set up single sign-on for each and every application. So you can see that with respect to Office 365, there is a prerequisite which works in the AD Self-Service Plus portal, and then a service provider configuration step which involves PowerShell commands, and also the identity provider configuration steps, which happens once again in AD Self-Service Plus. So the easy way to set up single sign-on for Office 365, and this method works for me, is to ensure that I have all the commands listed in a notepad right here. So yes, I have my PowerShell commands as well as the respective URLs, the domain that I require, and everything that I need to set up the configuration listed right here on the screen. Also, when we're working with respect to the certificate which is downloaded from the AD Self-Service Plus portal needs to be in a single line. So there is a little edit that you're required to do. So you can see the configuration steps available here. Also, I have already executed the PowerShell command right here. So starting from the get credential command, you can see that initially when I use the get msol domain command, the thinktodaytechnologies.com authentication status was verified and it said federated, but this status needs to be managed, so you can refer the step 9. So this comes in handy when you already have an Office 365 configuration and would like to change it to another domain. So once the status is managed, you can go about with the set of PowerShell commands, and you can see that the certificate has been uploaded here. And once again, when you make use of the get msol domain command, the thing today technology authentication status moves back to federated. So this simply shows that the configuration is done from your end. And so this is with respect to Office 365 and with respect to the AD Self-Service Plus site. So before I get into the AD Self-Service Plus site, let me quickly show you that all the details that you require for configuration with respect to the service provider is available right here in the Download SSO Certificate tab or SAML details available, which is your login, logout, and help URL. Certain applications make use of a fingerprint. Office 365 requires an SSO certification, and certain other applications makes use of metadata files. So make use of the help guide to guide you to go ahead with the stepwise configuration. So with respect to the AD Self-Service Plus side, it is very simple. Choose your module, which is single sign-on, the domain name that you're working with, the display name. I've given Office 365 SSO. You can give in a description if you want to. Choose the policies for which you wish to apply this configuration. So this is what we mean by policy-based access control. You can see that I've given the access to Office 365 to users belonging to all the policies, and that is all we need to do. We are good to go. So this is with respect to the Office 365 configuration, the single sign-on configuration with respect to AD Self-Service Plus. So once again, this might seem like a lot of information in a very, very short time and a little difficult to follow. But like I said, the audio recording of this webinar will be available online and you can always go back and refer it. All you need to do is drop in your mail ID in the questions tab or chat box that's allocated to you, and I will ensure that the recording reaches you. And you can get started working with single sign-on for Office 365 in your environment. So similarly, what I'm going to do now is show you the single sign-on configuration for G Suite right now. So I have given in the detail input here in the AD Self-Service Plus end. I'm going to go about and do the same in Google accounts as well. So logging in as an administrator, the domain that I'm working with for G Suite is evergrowingtech.com. So yes, once I have logged in as an administrator into my G Suite, I am required to navigate to the security icon right here. And I have to scroll down to setting up single sign-on. So like I said, with respect to AD Self-Service Plus, the set of configuration steps that you're required to follow to configure single sign-on is pretty simple. And the steps remain to be the same for almost all the applications. But with respect to the service provider, the configuration steps varies depending on the application. So you can make use of the help guide. You can also explore the single sign-on that works. So I'm going to set up single sign-on for third-party identity provider right here. I am going to copy the details from the AD Self-Service Plus page. So in the SAML SSO details, let me quickly copy the login URL and paste it here. I also require the logout URL and the change password or help URL. All right, so once this is done, what I'm required to do is upload a certificate, which is also available in the SAML SSO details. So replacing the certificate and uploading the certificate. My settings has been saved. I'm going to save once again. And once this is done, I am quickly going to check if the module I'm working with is single sign-on, the domain is ever-growing tech. Let me change the display name to G Suite SSO and give permission to all policies in it update. All right. So now let's check if single sign-on works for G Suite. So what we're required to do now is try and log in as a user, logging in as Sharada to check if the SSO configuration works for G Suite. So once I log in with my Windows domain credentials, navigating to the Applications tab, yes, I have Google Apps listed right here. I'm going to click Login. You can see that an email address has been detected. But was this the account we were working with? No. So let's go back and figure out what went wrong. Jumping back to the admin console, we were working with evergrowingtech.com with respect to G Suite. So why wasn't the email address detected? I'm sure you already have answers to this question. What I'm going to do now is show you where you can do the configuration with respect to AD Self-Service Plus. So it is important to map or link the account between the identity provider and your Active Directory. And this is automatically done. Yes, I'm going to choose Google Apps in the provider. And you can see the system we are working with is evergrowingtech.com and the account has been automatically linked. But by default, AD Self-Service Plus makes use of the mail attribute, your Active Directory mail attribute. So if you require to automatically map your account, you need to make use of the correct account attribute or account format that you have been following in your organization with respect to user accounts in both your application end as well as the name or how it works in your Active Directory. So for example, the setup that I've done is that all the account format that I'm working with in G Suite with respect to evergrowingtech.com follows the SAM account name at evergrowingtech.com format. So you can always make use of the other attributes like the mail attribute itself if that works well for you, or any other attribute or a standard account format that you've been maintaining in your organization. And if not, if you do not have an Active Directory attribute or a standard account format for a particular domain or a particular application, you needn't worry at all. All you need to do is disable automatic account linking. And in this case, what happens is that the user chooses the account for which he would like to work with. The user gets the privilege of choosing the account for which he would like to enable single sign-on for. So I'm going to show you that as well. But before that, let's check if this configuration has been successful. So I've done an account mapping between evergrowingtech.com and my Active Directory using this particular account format. I've saved the settings, jumping back to the user portal, refreshing the applications tab. Yes, Sharda at evergrowingtech.com has been detected. And let me see if I can log in. I'm going to hit next. Okay, so there is another trouble. We need to go and check where we went wrong. So if you see that the when I hit single sign-on, the URL that's displayed here is still of the previous setup, which means the single sign-on configuration that we did right now for our particular setup has not worked successfully. So what I'm going to do is go back and fix it by jumping to the admin console. So yes, you can see that I have probably not saved the setup and it is still at another page URL. So yes, I am going to redo the copy paste of URL. So the reason why I'm repeating steps like this is to just give you an idea of what can actually go wrong. So here it is as simple as the host name being wrong. So let me quickly change it. Copy pasting the login URL, the logout URL, the change password URL, and clicking save. So yes, double checked if this works. Yes, my settings has been saved successfully. And now let's go back and check if it finally works. So logging in as Sharda, navigating to the Applications tab, clicking to login. Sharda at evergrowingtech.com has been identified. And you can see that I am successfully logged in. I am logged in as Sharda Murthy into Sharda at evergrowingtech.com. A one-click seamless access to my G Suite with the help of AD Self-Service Plus. And this time, if you have a quick look at the URL, you can see that when I click next, the correct host name is displayed right here. And when I key in my Windows credentials, I am able to successfully log in as Sharda into the domain that I just configured. So yes, I had a couple of answers from you today about how many applications you work with on an everyday basis or how many applications users in your organizations work with. And I got I got answers between 3, 5, 7, but I also got more than 15 applications as an answer. So in that case, imagine how easy this is, how simplified it is if users have to log into their AD Self-Service Plus portal, gain access to the application tab, and they will have a one-click access to not one, not two, but more than 100 applications for which you have configured single sign-on for users in your organization. Naturally, I don't literally mean 100 applications because I'm not sure how many organizations use 100 applications. But what I'm trying to say is multiple application logins can be avoided, password fatigue can be avoided, password reset process can be avoided too. Indirectly, I would say, because uh, naturally, users tend to not remember passwords exactly when they are trying to log in and gain access to an application. Not only users, even me, I forget my password exactly when I need to log into a particular application. And even a few minutes before logging into the application, I'm sure I remember the password. And isn't it much easier this way? Because all I need to make use of is one single set of credentials, which is my Windows domain logon password, which is something that I'm not very easily going to forget because I log in and access my computer every single day. And that is one major advantage of enterprise single sign-on for cloud applications. That is one major advantage of a single sign-on solution like AD Self-Service Plus for users in your organization. So now that I spoke about configuring single sign-on for Office 365 and G Suite, I'm also going to show you how you can work with two-factor authentication. So under policy configuration, let me choose the policy admin. And here you can see login two-factor authentication. So once you enable two-factor authentication, say by verification code via email verification, the user gets a mail once they go through the primary factor of authentication, which is the Windows logon credentials. So what I'm trying to say here is that every time a user tries to log into their G Suite or Office 365, either through the AD Self-Service Plus portal or via the application URL, you can add an additional layer of security to check the user's identity, to verify the user's identity, to help the users authenticate their identity in order to boost security in your organization. So once you enable two-factor authentication for any particular self-service policy with either the verification code, Duo Security Radius, or RSA Secure ID, you can ensure that the user goes through any one of this method alternate to the Windows logon password, Windows logon credentials to be able to successfully access their cloud applications, to securely access their cloud applications. And that is one major advantage that AD Self-Service Plus provides. All right, so this is with respect to securing cloud applications with two-factor authentication, securing access to cloud applications with the help of two-factor authentication. So this is something that we already saw. We saw how to make use of the existing Active Directory identities as an authentication source to access the application that a user wants to. So once single sign-on is enabled, for example, for Zendesk, a logon request is sent and an SAML request is verified with the AD authentication, AD Self-Service Plus server. An Active Directory authentication takes place. And what I mean by an Active Directory authentication is the user's Windows logon credentials is verified. And once this is done, an SAML response is reverted back and the logon access is granted to not one, not two, not three, but more than 100 single sign-on configured applications right from the AD Self-Service Plus portal. So all that the user needs to remember is the Windows logon credentials, and if you have enabled two-factor authentication for the user, then they have to verify their identity and they are good to access more than 100 applications from one single portal and one click seamless access. So yes, we are talking about big numbers right here with respect to access. So coming to the last segment of today's agenda, I said we are talking about large numbers. I just said we're talking about 100 plus applications. So do I mean granting access to all the 100 applications from one single portal to all the users? Not at all. You can customize access to applications based on organizational units and groups present in your Active Directory. So what you see on your screen is typically how it works in AD Self-Service Plus as well. Say you would like to grant access to all employees. Say you'd like to grant access to all applications listed right here to all employees. You can do that. You can also restrict application access to users based on their user roles. For example, give access to Bamboo HR and Purely HR or people only to users belonging to to HR. Give access to Salesforce and ServiceNow only to users belonging to sales. Give access to Zendesk only for users belonging to support. And however it works in your organization, you have the liberty to customize policies in AD Self-Service Plus based on organizational units and groups present in your Active Directory. So yes, let me show you how this works instead of just giving you a brief idea. So what I've done here initially is created an organizational unit under my name. So what you're seeing is the ADUC console. I've created users in each OU under each organizational unit depicting a typical organization, that is admin, finance, HR, and created users in each of these organizations. So this works with groups as well. All right, so in AD Self-Service Plus, what I've done is created policies replicating my Active Directory organizational unit. So I can choose organizational units or groups present in Active Directory for a particular domain and create self-service policies. So you can see that I've already created 3 policies right here: HR, finance, and admin. So once this is done, a lot of things can happen based on self-service policies that you create in AD Self-Service Plus, right from the multi-factor authenticated access you get, the way you notify users about password expiry, you can enforce password policies. But what we're talking about today is giving access to applications, which is password sync or single sign-on. So here, what I'm going to do now is choose single sign-on. And once this is done, let's take an example of Zendesk. So once again, I've pre-configured Zendesk. What I'm going to do now is change the policy access right here to, let's say, finance. Okay. I am going to give access to Zendesk to users belonging to finance. And going back, I am going to give access to G Suite to self-service policies or users belonging to HR. And going back once again, I am going to give access to Office 365 for all policies. So what I'm going to do now is try and log in as a user belonging to each of these self-service policies or each of these organizational unit and show you how the access to these applications is restricted. So opening the AD Self-Service Plus portal and trying to log in as a user. Let's start as a user from a user belonging to the organizational unit admin. Let's take an example of Sharda. So logging in as Sharada, navigating to the Applications tab, Sharada has access only to Office 365. Okay, let's try and log in as a user from Finance, Andy. Keying in Andy's Windows logon credentials, navigating to the Applications tab. Andy has access to Office 365 as well as Zendesk, and Andy belongs to Finance. Yes, we did configure Zendesk for Finance. And finally, let's log in as Adam, who belongs to the self-service policy, HR. So yes, Adam has access to G Suite and Office 365. So if you get the picture right, you can customize access based on OUs and groups present in Active Directory, and we call it policy-based access control in AD Self-Service Plus. So what we did now is give privilege to Office 365 to all employees, and employee in HR had access to G Suite in Office 365, whereas employee belonging to sales had access to Zendesk in Office 365. In our case, it was finance. So yes, you can control access to uh, applications based on self-service policies that you create in AD Self-Service Plus. So that is another major advantage. So we are talking about Active Directory based single sign-on for cloud applications, and we saw how to we saw how to provide one-click access to cloud applications, both in the case of Office 365 and G Suite, without having to manually enter the credential every single time. And we were able to successfully log in by making use of the Active Directory as our authentication source to log in and access these applications. And we also saw how to control single sign-on for each application based on OUs and groups present in the Active Directory. So what I'm going to show you finally is how this works if you do not have a standard account format, which is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to choose G Suite and disable automatic account linking. And I have a message which says I cannot disable automatic account linking for single sign-on enabled apps, which simply means that the AD user accounts will be automatically linked with the corresponding accounts in the selected provider based on the attribute format that you choose. So this is what I was trying to stress about. The disadvantage that the automatic account linking being disabled provides with respect to single sign-on is that you not only give the privilege of choosing the account, which is the first step to compromise on security. Secondly, the account which is linked can be misled. For example, say a user Adam is given a choice to choose the account for which he would like to enable single sign-on. So Adam naturally has only one account, but this could lead to a security threat because Adam, when logged in, can make use of another user's account for single sign-on access. So with respect to single sign-on enabled applications, you cannot disable automatic account linking, which means you need to ensure that there is a standard account format that a user can use. So I'm also going to quickly go through the account attributes that is here, the object GUID, the mail attribute, the SAM account name, the user principal name, the name attribute itself once again. So multiple Active Directory attributes can be made use of here to link accounts with respect to single sign-on. So this is another point that I wanted to talk about. So yes, with that said, we have covered all these said exercises in today's agenda. And I am going to take time to answer all your questions. If you have any questions regarding today's session, please keep them coming in the chat box. If you'd like to receive a video recording of today's session, drop in your mail IDs so I can ensure that the resource kit reaches you. And yes, I really hope that you learned in detail about how to set up single sign-on with AD Self-Service Plus for your organization, how simple it is and how secure it is to set up single sign-on. We spoke about two-factor authentication to boost security. We spoke about controlling access to applications based on policy-based access control. We also spoke about making use of Active Directory credentials, Windows logon credentials as an authentication source to log in and access these applications. And what you see on your screen is a couple of applications that AD Self-Service Plus supports with respect to SAML single sign-on. We're also working on a lot more applications. And if you have any questions regarding today's sessions, please put them in the questions tab. I'm going to take time to answer every single one of them. Also, you can contact me personally at sharda@manageengine.com, and I will take time to answer your questions or any issues you have with respect to AD Self-Service Plus. You can also take the guidance of our support team by dropping in a mail to support@adselfserviceplus.com if you have any trouble configuring any of the single sign-on application or in general using AD Self-Service Plus. And we will take all the time to assist you through the process of using AD Self-Service Plus. So you can mail your queries with respect to this session or the applications to me or my team. And once again, the video will be available. So drop in a mail or write a comment, drop in a chat box, comment right here so I can send the resource kit to you. And also drop in your feedback and what you'd like to look forward to in the upcoming sessions with respect to AD Self-Service Plus, what you're looking forward to with respect to a single sign-on, or if you have an application request, or any suggestions, ideas, or comments regarding today's session or the application in general is welcome. So please keep them coming. You can drop in a mail or write a feedback to us in the feedback form that will be sent to you right after today's session. Also, I would love to thank every single one of you for taking time in attending today's session. It was an immense pleasure to be the host of today's session. And on that note, I would also like to quickly give you a link. I'm going to post the link for you in the chat box that is allocated to you. So explore the link and understand what we at ManageEngine AD Solutions are doing with respect to getting you ready for GDPR. So yes, an interesting link coming your way. You can check them out in the chat box I've just dropped in a mail to you. Also, I'm sure you had a good time in today's session. I'm going to take time to answer all your questions right now. And on that note, this is Sharda, product expert in AD Self-Service Plus from the marketing team of ManageEngine, signing off for today. Thank you once again for making it to today's webinar amidst your busy schedule. I really appreciate it. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.